On the 21st of November 1970 at 02:18 hours Indochina time, 56 American commandos touched down inside a walled compound 23 miles west of Hanoi. A radio clicks once, go. For 27 minutes, the only sounds are rotor wash, suppressed gunfire, and the methodical sweep of cell doors swinging open. 0 Americans fall. 0 prisoners walk out. The compound sits empty, evacuated months earlier by North Vietnamese forces who never imagined rescue was possible. At 02:46 hours, the last helicopter lifts through darkness over the Red River Delta. Hanoi's 3,000-gun air defense belt fires not one round at the departing aircraft. The barred door slams shut behind the raiders. What the world calls a failure, military planners call proof. Since 1965, American war planners treat the Red River Delta as operationally untouchable. 300 surface-to-air missile sites ring Hanoi in concentric belts, with engagement zones overlapping every approach corridor. Over 3,000 anti-aircraft guns cover altitudes from treetop level to 20,000 feet. MiG-21 interceptors at Phu Sa Yen and Gia Lam air bases can scramble within 4 minutes of radar contact. President Lyndon Johnson halts all strikes north of the 19th parallel in November 1968, creating a de facto sanctuary around the capital. Military Assistance Command, Vietnam projects that any ground operation within 50 miles of Hanoi will suffer 30% casualties. The myth holds because distance, darkness, and air defenses form an impenetrable triangle. On the 25th of May, 1970, Defense Intelligence Agency photo. Interpreters deliver overhead imagery of Sơn Tây to Brigadier General Donald Blackburn in Washington. The photos show signs of American prisoners, coded ground signals, organized foot traffic patterns, and outdoor activity consistent with 61 men. Within 48 hours, Army Chief of Staff General William Westmoreland authorizes a feasibility study under the code name Polar Circle. On the 10th of July 1970, the Joint Chiefs of Staff approve Operation Ivory Coast, the planning and training phase for a helicopter-borne raid. Brigadier General LeRoy Manor takes command of the air element. Colonel Arthur Bull Simons commands the ground force. At Eglin Air Force Base, Florida, engineers construct a full-scale replica of Sơn Tây compound using dimensions from SR-71 reconnaissance. 140 by 185 feet, 14-foot walls, 55 cells. The Central Intelligence Agency builds a tabletop model, codenamed Barbara, allowing planners to study the compound from every angle. Simons handpicks 103 Special Forces volunteers from Fort Bragg, North Carolina, telling them only that the mission involves considerable travel and risk. Over 500 Green Berets volunteer. Simons interviews each personally. Training begins on the 20th of August, 1970, with a mandate: rehearse every contingency until failure is impossible. The assault force divides into 3 elements: Blue Boy, 14 men for compound assault; Red Wine, 20 men for command and control; Greenleaf, 22 men for exterior security. The air package requires 6 helicopters, 1 HH-3 Jolly Green to crash land inside the compound, 5 HH-53 Super Jolly Greens to land outside the walls. 2 C-130 Combat Talons will navigate the formation using terrain-following radar. 5 A-1 Skyraiders will orbit at 5,000 feet for close air support. The U.S. Navy commits 59 aircraft from Task Force 77 to launch a diversionary strike at Haiphong at 0200 hours, pulling MiGs and radar attention east. Manor designs the raid around one principle: all aircraft must arrive over Sơn Tây simultaneously at 0218 hours within a 30-second window. From the 20th of August to the 6th of November 1970, the task force conducts 170 full-dress rehearsals at Eglin, progressing from daylight to total darkness. On the 18th of November, Admiral John McCain briefs President Richard Nixon at the White House. Nixon approves execution with 5 words: "I want this thing to go." On the 20th of November at 15:56 hours local time, Manor issues the formal launch order. The stopwatch starts. At 22:56 hours, the first helicopter lifts from Udon, rotors cutting through darkness toward the Red River Delta. At 0107 hours, Indochina time on the 21st of November, 1970, 6 helicopters crossed the Red River into North Vietnam, flying in trail formation at 200 feet above ground level. Cherry 1, the lead C-130 Combat Talon, navigates by terrain following radar, threading the formation through the Song Ja River Valley. The route avoids Hanoi's primary radar at Bac Mai, 18 miles east, by hugging the western approaches through karst limestone ridges. 5 HH-53 Super Jolly Greens, Apple 1 through Apple 5, follow Cherry 1 in single file, main rotors 300 feet apart. 1 HH-3 Jolly Green, call sign Banana 1, carries Colonel Simons and the 14-man Blue Boy assault team. At 0125 hours, the formation flies over terrain that SR-71 reconnaissance photographed 13 days earlier. Pilot Major Herbert Zender, at the controls of Banana 1, watches Cherry 1's infrared formation, lights through night vision goggles. The lights blink once. Waypoint achieved, 22 minutes to target. Radio silence holds. No one transmits except in emergency. At 0134 hours, the formation passes between Ho Lac Airfield and Phuc Yen Air Base, threading a 12-mile gap in North Vietnamese radar coverage. EC-121, Warning Star aircraft, orbiting 100 miles east over the Gulf of Tonkin, jam. P-12, spoon rest early warning radars across the Delta. North Vietnamese air defense operators report heavy clutter on their scopes, attributing it to atmospheric interference. The jamming masks the helicopter formation completely. No radar in the Red River Delta tracks the raiders. At 0145 hours, 59 Navy aircraft from USS Oriskany and USS Ranger launched the diversionary strike against petroleum storage at Hai Phong, 60 miles east of Son Tai. North Vietnamese fighter control scrambles 4 MiG-21 interceptors from Gia Lam, vectoring them toward the carrier strike. At 0200 hours, Cherry 1 begins the final approach to Son Tai, climbing to 1,500 feet to drop flares. The helicopter formation drops to 100 feet, skimming rice paddies and tree lines. Zender checks his stopwatch. 18 minutes to target, on schedule to the second. At 0207 hours, Cherry 1 releases the first flare over Son Tai compound. White phosphorus light bathes the prison walls, visible to helicopter pilots 6 miles behind. Banana 1 accelerates, breaking formation to arrive 30 seconds ahead of the HH-53s. Zender drops to 20 feet, airspeed 90 knots, aiming for the compound courtyard. The stopwatch reads 0217 hours, 50 seconds, 10 seconds to touchdown. At 0218 hours, 0 seconds, Banana 1's landing gear shears through the compound's east wall. The helicopter crashes inside the courtyard, rotors tearing into a 40-foot tree. Simons and the Blue Boy team exit through the cargo door in 8 seconds. Overhead, Apple 1 flares and hovers 10 feet above the compound's southwest corner. Red Wine Command Element fast ropes to the roof of the guard quarters in 12 seconds. Apple 2 lands outside the compound's south wall. Greenleaf security team deploys in a 180-degree perimeter. From engine start at Udon to boots on target. 131 minutes, exactly as rehearsed. 0 North Vietnamese radars detected the formation during ingress. At 0219 hours, Simons radios the only transmission during ingress. Blue Boy on target. Manor, monitoring from Monkey Mountain, Acknowledges with 2 clicks of the radio. The A-1 Skyraiders circle at 5,000 feet with full ordnance loads, 7,800 pounds per aircraft. No one requests close air support. The F-4 Phantoms maintain MiG combat air patrol between Sơn Tây and Phuoc Yen Air Base, 12 miles northeast. North Vietnamese MiG-21s remain grounded, chasing the Navy strike at Hai Phong. At 0222 hours, North Vietnamese anti-aircraft artillery around Hanoi begins firing at the Navy strike 60 miles away. The capital's 3,000-gun air defense belt never pivots west. Precision navigation, synchronized timing, and electronic warfare created a corridor through North Vietnam's air defenses. Not because the defenses failed, but because the attackers never gave them a target. Inside Sơn Tây compound at 0218 hours 10 seconds, Colonel Simons exits Banana 1 first, Car 15 carbine at the ready, followed by Captain Richard Dick Meadows and 13 Blue Boy commandos. The compound measures 140 feet by 180 feet. The plan allocates 1 cell per commando per minute. Blue Boy moves in 2-man teams, each team assigned a cell block. The first door opens to an empty room. Dust on the floor, no bedding, walls stained by rain. The second door, empty. Meadows radios Simons at 0220 hours. Negative items so far. By 0221 hours, Blue Boy has cleared the southern cell block. 7 rooms, 0 prisoners. Technical Sergeant LeRoy Wright places C4 charges on 3 doors simultaneously. The detonations shake the compound walls at 0222 hours. Blue Boy enters each cell with flashlights high, weapons low, shouting through bullhorns, "We're Americans! We're Americans!" 0 voices answer. At 0223 hours, Red Wine Element, positioned on the guard quarters roof, engages 4 North Vietnamese soldiers running across the courtyard. Master Sergeant Herman Spencer fires a 40-round burst from an M60 machine gun. All 4 go down. Outside the south wall, Greenleaf deploys in a defensive arc 50 meters from the compound. Sergeant First Class Lorenzo Robbins sets up an M60 machine gun facing the road to Hanoi. Staff Sergeant Joseph Murray positions a second M60 covering the approach from the village of Sơn Tây, 400 meters east. At 0224 hours, Murray's gun engages a Soviet-made Gaz-69 truck. Tracers shred the radiator at 400 meters. The truck swerves into an irrigation ditch. 2 occupants flee north into rice paddies. Overhead, Apple 1 hovers at 20 feet, rotor wash flattening the courtyard vegetation. The helicopter's door gunners scan for targets. They fire 0 rounds. Apple 2, grounded outside the south wall, keeps engines at flight idle. The crew chief, Technical Sergeant Alvin Shackelford, monitors the radio for Lima Lima, the code for casualties. He hears nothing but Simon's calm, clipped updates. Blue Boy, North Block clear. Negative items. At 0225 hours, Meadows reaches the final cell in the northeast corner. The door hangs open. Inside, a wooden bed frame with no mattress, walls damp from flooding. Meadows keys his radio at 0226 hours. All cells clear. Negative items. The search has taken 8 minutes, 17 minutes faster than the fastest rehearsal at Eglin. Simons orders a secondary sweep. Every cell, every corner, every crawl space. At 0228 hours, Wright discovers a hidden storage room beneath the northeast cell block. The team blows the door with a shaped charge. Inside, rice sacks, medical supplies, 1 North Vietnamese uniform. No prisoners. Simons radios Manor at 0230 hours. Negative items. Request Cherry. At 0231 hours, Blue Boy withdraws to the courtyard, moving in pairs. Meadows counts heads, 14 men, 0 wounded, 0 missing. Greenleaf collapses the perimeter, bounding back to Apple II in 30-second rushes. At 0232 hours, Apple I lifts from the compound courtyard, rotors kicking up dust and debris. Apple II follows 15 seconds later. The ground assault, from touchdown to liftoff, lasted 14 minutes. The plan allocated 27 minutes. Manor later writes, "Each man knew precisely what his task was under each contingency and was an expert in his area." The raiders moved through Sơn Tây like surgeons through a procedure practiced until error became impossible. Not because the enemy was weak, but because the raiders were flawless. Above Sơn Tây at 0218 hours on the 21st of November 1970, 5 A-1 Skyraiders orbit at 5,000 feet, call signs Peach 1 through Peach 5. Each aircraft carries 7,800 pounds of ordnance, 4 20mm cannons with 800 rounds total, 14 5-inch rockets, 6 cluster bomb units. The A-1's mission: suppress any North Vietnamese force moving towards the compound. Peach 1 pilot, Major Kenneth Croce, watches the first flare ignite over Sơn Tây. He rolls into a dive, descending to 2,500 feet, and orbits the compound at 180 knots. For 28 minutes, Croce sees 0 ground fire, 0 vehicle movement, 0 indication that North Vietnamese forces know the raid is happening. Peach 2 through Peach 5 maintain altitude, engines throttled back, waiting for the call sign, wild route, heavy contact. The call never comes. At 0224 hours, Greenleaf engages the GAZ-69 truck with M60 fire. Croce rolls in to confirm the kill, but Greenleaf has already stopped the vehicle. Peach flight expends 0 ordnance during the entire mission. 10 miles northeast, F-4 Phantom jets from the 432nd Tactical Reconnaissance Wing-Fly MiG Combat Air Patrol. Firebird flight, 4 F-4s led by Major Robert Undorf, orbits between Sơn Tây and Phuc Yen Air Base at 15,000 feet. Hawk flight, another 4 F-4s, covers the eastern approach from Gia Lam Air Base. North Vietnamese MiG-21 interceptors remain on the ground at both bases. Firebird flight monitors North Vietnamese radio frequencies. The only chatter concerns the Navy carrier strike at Hai Phong. At 0226 hours, North Vietnamese Air Defense Command orders 2 MiG-21s to scramble from Gia Lam. The MiGs vector east toward the carrier aircraft, 90 degrees away from Sơn Tây. Hawk flight shadows the MiGs at 18,000 feet but holds fire. Manor's diversion has pulled every available interceptor toward the coast. At 0230 hours, North Vietnamese anti-aircraft artillery around Hanoi begins firing at the Navy strike. Tracers arc into the sky 18 miles east of Sơn Tây. The capital's 3,000 gun belt fires over 8,000 rounds in 15 minutes. Not one round aims at Manor's aircraft. Offshore, in the Gulf of Tonkin, 2 EC-121 Warning Star aircraft jam North Vietnamese early warning radars. The EC-121s broadcast high-power interference across the P-12 Spoon Rest radar frequency, blinding stations at Bac Mai and Son La. North Vietnamese radar operators report heavy clutter and possible jamming, but they attribute it to the carrier strike. Defense Intelligence Agency intercepts confirm that Hanoi's air defense network never detects the helicopter formation. At 0235 hours, the last North Vietnamese MiG lands at Gia Lam, fuel exhausted. Firebird and Hawk flights turn west, following Manor's helicopters toward the Laotian border. Peach flight remains over Sơn Tây until 0240 hours, providing top cover as the HH-53s climb out. Croce watches Apple I and Apple II disappear into the darkness, rotors strobing against the stars. He makes one final pass over the compound. 0 muzzle flashes, 0 headlights, 0 sign that North Vietnamese reinforcements are coming. At 0246 hours, all aircraft are feet wet over the Gulf of Tonkin. The 56 raiders carry 0 casualties. The 5 A-1s carry full ordnance loads. The 10 F-4s never fire a missile. The raid plan allocated 90 minutes for the round trip from Udon to Sơn Tây and back. Actual time, 110 minutes, including 28 minutes on target. Manor later tells Air Force historians, "We planned for a fight. They gave us a drive. Not by destroying the defenses, but by making them irrelevant through deception, jamming, and timing." On the 20th of August, 1970, 103 Special Forces soldiers and 92 Air Force crew members arrive at Eglin Air Force Base Auxiliary, Field No. 3, Florida. None know the target. All know the stakes. Failure means death inside North Vietnam. Brigadier General Manor tells them, "We will rehearse this mission until execution becomes mechanical." Over the next 79 days, the task force will conduct 170 full-dress rehearsals, more than any raid in American military history. At Eglin, engineers construct a full-scale mock-up of Sơn Tây compound, 140 feet by 185 feet, 14-foot plywood walls, 55 cell doors. The mock-up sits in a secluded corner of the auxiliary field, covered with camouflage netting between rehearsals to hide it from Soviet reconnaissance satellites. Cosmos 355, a Soviet spy satellite, crosses over Eglin twice daily. Engineers disassemble the mock-up before each pass, then rebuild it after the satellite moves on. Colonel Simons divides his ground force into 3 elements and assigns each a mission. Blue Boy assaults the compound, Red Wine controls the perimeter, Greenleaf blocks reinforcements. Training begins with daylight walkthroughs, progresses to live-fire exercises, and culminates in total darkness rehearsals with pyrotechnics simulating combat. On the 28th of August, the first night rehearsal takes 62 minutes from touchdown to extraction. Simons tells his men, "Unacceptable. We rehearse until we can do this blindfolded in 27 minutes." By the 15th of September, the time drops to 45 minutes. By the 1st of October, 32 minutes. By the 15th of October, 26 minutes. The final rehearsal on the 6th of November, observed by Joint Chiefs of Staff representatives, takes 25 minutes, 2 minutes under the limit. Air Force crews face equally demanding training. Formation flying at 200 feet above ground level at night with dissimilar aircraft. The C-130 Combat Talon cruises at 250 knots. The HH-53 helicopters max out at 165 knots. The A-1 Skyraiders stall below 120 knots. On the 25th of August, the first formation flight ends when an HH-53 nearly collides with the C-130 during a turn. Manor grounds the air element for 48 hours, redesigns the flight profile, and resumes training with tighter spacing. By the 10th of September, the formation can fly 200 miles at night without breaking apart. By the 1st of October, pilots can maintain 300-foot rotor spacing through turns, climbs, and descents. The air crews log 268 sorties and over 1,000 flight hours during training. Innovations emerge from relentless rehearsal. Miners' headlamps for hands-free illumination, Armson single-point sights for low-light target acquisition, oxyacetylene torches for cutting through metal bars. Ground forces test every tool. Bolt cutters on Sơn Tây actual cell doors, chainsaws on wood barriers, C4-shaped charges on masonry walls. Sergeant LeRoy Wright becomes the demolitions expert, perfecting a charge that blows doors without injuring prisoners in adjacent cells. Security surrounding the training is extreme. Phone taps on all personnel, visitor logs, classified material control, daily security briefings. Not a single leak occurs during 79 days of training. On the 6th of November, the task force executes a final full-profile rehearsal with Joint Chiefs of Staff observers. The ground assault takes 25 minutes. The air element arrives within a 20-second window. 0 errors occur. JCS observers file a report. The force is ready. Execution probability, 95%. On the 20th of November at Udon, Simon selects the final 56 raiders from the 100 who deployed. At 22:56 hours, they board helicopters for the mission. Each man carries the muscle memory of 170 rehearsals: where to run, where to shoot, where to extract. Not because the raiders were superhuman, but because repetition made precision inevitable. At 02:32 hours, Indochina time on the 21st of November 1970, Apple 1 lifts from Sơn Tây compound with Colonel Simons and the Blue Boy element aboard. Apple 2 follows 15 seconds later, carrying Greenleaf security team and Captain Meadows. Apple 3, which orbited 1 mile south during the assault, lands for final pickup at 02:33 hours. The stopwatch reads 14 minutes on target, 13 minutes under the planned limit. The extraction phase begins exactly as rehearsed. Helicopters depart in reverse order, maintaining 300-foot separation. At 02:34 hours, all 6 helicopters turn west toward the Red River, flying at 200 feet above ground level. Cherry 1, the lead C-130, navigates the formation back through the Song Ja Valley, avoiding Hanoi's radar coverage. Radio silence holds. No pilot transmits except to report mechanical failure or enemy contact. Neither occurs. At 02:38 hours, the formation crosses the Red River outbound, 20 minutes after crossing inbound. Peach Flight A1. Skyraiders maintains top cover at 5,000 feet until the helicopters clear North Vietnamese airspace. Firebird and Hawk flights, F-4 Phantoms, turn west and shadow the helicopters at 15,000 feet. At 02:40 hours, North Vietnamese Air Defense Command realizes that aircraft penetrated the Red River Delta. Radio intercepts show confusion. Controllers debate whether the raid targeted Hanoi itself or a facility near the capital. By 02:45 hours, North Vietnamese Army units mobilize toward Sơn Tây, but the raiders are already 12 miles inside Laos. At 02:46 hours, all aircraft cross into Laotian airspace, feet dry over the Mekong River Valley. Manor, monitoring from Monkey Mountain, receives the final radio transmission from Cherry 1. All elements feet dry, 0 casualties. The extraction, from liftoff at Son Tui to crossing the Laotian border, takes 14 minutes. The plan allocated 20 minutes. At 03:05 hours, North Vietnamese troops reach Sơn Tây compound and find Banana 1 burning in the courtyard. They count 5 dead guards, 2 wounded civilians, and spent shell casings littering the cell blocks. No American bodies, no American prisoners, no American equipment except the demolished helicopter. At 03:32 hours, the first helicopter lands at Udon Royal Thai Air Force Base. Ground crews inspect the aircraft for battle damage. Apple 1 has 5 bullet holes in the tail boom, all from ground fire over Laos, not from Sơn Tây. Apple 2 through Apple 5, 0 damage. At 03:55 hours, Manor assembles the 56 raiders in a hangar at Udon and delivers the news. The compound was empty. No prisoners. The raiders sit in silence for 30 seconds. Simon stands and says, "We did our job. The intelligence failed, not us." Manor adds, "You executed a flawless mission. 0 casualties, 0 errors, 0 failures. The outcome is not your fault." At 06:40 hours, Indochina time, Admiral John McCain cables the White House, "Raid executed, 0 U.S. casualties, negative POWs." At 1600 hours Washington time on the 21st of November, Secretary of Defense Melvin Laird announces Operation Kingpin at a Pentagon press conference. On the 22nd of November, the New York Times runs the headline, "U.S. raid fails to find POWs, but damages Hanoi's aura of invulnerability." The extraction succeeds not because North Vietnamese forces are slow to respond, but because Manor's plan gives them nothing to respond to. not by overwhelming force, but by making the impossible routine through rehearsal, timing, and coordination. The raiders returned to Udon, believing they failed. Intelligence images from July showed 61 prisoners. Floodwaters and North Vietnamese paranoia moved them in August. The mission executes flawlessly, but the target vanishes 4 months before execution. Yet something shifts inside North Vietnamese strategic planning. Hanoi is no longer a sanctuary. For 5 years, proximity to the capital guaranteed safety from American ground forces. For 27 minutes on the 21st of November 1970, that guarantee dies. The stopwatch stops at Sơn Tây, but the strategic clock keeps ticking. On the 25th of November 1970, 4 days after the raid, General Vuong Nguyen Giap convenes the Central Military Commission in Hanoi. He delivers a classified assessment. The enemy demonstrated the capability to strike anywhere in the north with impunity. We must assume they will do so again. Within 2 weeks, North Vietnamese forces consolidate all POW camps into Hỏa Lò prison, the Hanoi Hilton, inside the capital. The move eliminates 14 dispersed camps and places 368 American prisoners in one fortress. Easier to defend, but also easier to locate. Giap orders 12 surface-to-air missile batteries relocated from coastal sites to positions around the Red River Delta. Phuc Yen Air Base receives 4 additional MiG-21 interceptor squadrons with orders to maintain 24-hour alert status. Between December 1970 and March 1972, North Vietnamese military spending on air defense increases 40%. The Sơn Tây raid forces Hanoi to treat its own capital as a potential target, diverting resources from the war in the south. In Washington, the raid's strategic impact unfolds in Joint Chiefs of Staff meetings throughout December 1970. On the 8th of December, Chairman Admiral Thomas Mora briefs President Nixon. Sơn Tây proves we can operate inside North Vietnam's air defense belt. The constraints are political, not operational. Nixon asks, if we can hit 23 miles from Hanoi, why are we restricting strikes north of the 19th parallel? Mora replies, because you ordered us to, Mr. President. The military can execute. Policy must permit. On the 15th of December, Nixon authorizes a review of targeting restrictions in North Vietnam. The review, completed in January 1971, identifies 200 military targets inside the Red River Delta that were previously off-limits. When North Vietnamese armor crosses the DMZ on the 30th of March 1972, launching the Nguyen Hue offensive, Nixon authorizes Operation Linebacker. For the first time since 1968, American aircraft strike targets throughout North Vietnam, including the Red River Delta. The Sơn Tây raid did not cause Linebacker, but it demonstrated that the operational capability existed. When Nixon needed to escalate in 1972, the Joint Chiefs could say, "We know the defenses. We have already been there." The doctrinal payoff unfolds over the next decade. On the 24th of April 1980, Operation Eagle Claw, the Iran hostage rescue mission, attempts to replicate the Sơn Tây model. Joint task force, rehearsed coordination, helicopter-borne assault. Eagle Claw fails due to mechanical breakdowns and command fragmentation, but the planning framework comes directly from Manor's 1970 blueprint. After Eagle Claw, the Department of Defense creates the Joint Special Operations Command in 1980. In 1987, Congress establishes United States Special Operations Command, a unified combatant command for all special operations forces. The Sơn Tây raid's organizational model, joint planning, unified command, dedicated training, becomes doctrine for USSOCOM. Every American special operations raid since 1970 carries Sơn Tei's DNA, the rehearsal rigor, the timing discipline, the radio brevity codes. In 1990, planners for Operation Desert Storm study Sơn Tây before designing deep raids into Iraq. In 2001, Special Forces planners for Operation Enduring Freedom in Afghanistan rehearse raids at replica compounds in North Carolina, a direct echo of Eglin's Sun Tai mock-up. In 2011, Navy SEAL Team 6 rehearses the Osama bin Laden raid at a full-scale compound replica for weeks before execution. The bin Laden raid succeeds because helicopters arrive simultaneously, assault teams clear methodically, and radio discipline holds under fire. For the 56 Sun Tai raiders, the payoff arrives in private moments, far from headlines. On the 12th of February, 1973, the first American POWs fly out of Hanoi under Operation Homecoming. At Clark Air Base in the Philippines, returning prisoners ask about the Sun Tai raid. Navy Lieutenant Commander John McCain III tells debriefers, "The raid changed everything. The North Vietnamese knew you could come for us. They stopped the worst torture because they feared you would come back." Air Force Major James Kassler, held at Hỏa Lò since 1966, says, "After Sun Tai, the guards told us, 'Your country still fights for you.' That hope kept us alive for 2 more years." In April 1973, Colonel Simons receives a letter from Air Force Captain Eugene Red McDaniel, a returned POW. McDaniel writes, "You didn't rescue us from Sun Tai, but you rescued us from despair. Thank you." The letter is one of 47 that Simons receives from former POWs between February and June 1973. On the 25th of November 1970, President Nixon decorates Brigadier General Manor, Colonel Simons, SFC Tyrone Adderley, and TSEC Leroy Wright at the White House. Nixon tells them, "You executed the most daring rescue attempt in American history. The prisoners were not there, but the courage was real." On the 9th of December 1970, Secretary of Defense Melvin Laird decorates the remaining 52 raiders at Fort Bragg, North Carolina. The decorations include 6 Distinguished Service Crosses, 5 Air Force Crosses, and 85 Silver Stars. In June 1975, Manor and Simons testify before the Senate Armed Services Committee. Senator Barry Goldwater asks Manor, "Knowing the prison was empty, was the raid a failure?" Manor replies, "Senator, we executed a flawless mission. The intelligence failed, but the raid proved that Hanoi was not untouchable. That changed the war." In May 1979, the Air Force Special Operations School at Hurlburt Field, Florida, adds the Sun Tai raid to its core curriculum. The lesson is not about rescuing prisoners. The lesson is about reach. Flawless planning, joint execution, and surprise can penetrate any defense. In 2015, on the 45th anniversary of the raid, 17 surviving raiders gather at the Special Operations Memorial at MacDill Air Force Base, Florida. A plaque commemorates the raid. Sun Tai, 21st of November, 1970. 56 raiders, 0 casualties, 0 prisoners recovered. Mission, flawless. The production miracle's payoff is not measured in prisoners freed, but in capabilities proven. The Sun Tai raid ends at 0332 hours on the 21st of November, 1970, when the last helicopter touches down at Udon, but its effects ripple through strategy and doctrine for decades. In the immediate aftermath, North Vietnamese forces consolidate POW camps, relocate air defenses, and treat captured pilots with marginally less brutality. American planners internalize the lesson. Hanoi's air defense belt can be penetrated with surprise, coordination, and rehearsal. When Nixon escalates in 1972, the Joint Chiefs reference Sun Tai as proof that deep strikes are operationally feasible. For the 56 raiders, the mission is both validation and frustration. They executed perfectly and achieved nothing tangible. Yet, the intangible legacy, strategic perception, and operational doctrine shapes the war's endgame and every special operations mission since. Hanoi's confidence in its sanctuary erodes. Washington's confidence in its reach expands. In 1973, returning POWs credit the raid with psychological impact. They knew rescue was possible, and their captors knew it too. The operational model, joint planning, rehearsal discipline, and radio silence, becomes doctrine for U.S. Special Operations Command when it forms in 1987. The failures of Operation Eagle Claw in 1980 reinforce Sơn Tai's lessons. Joint execution requires unified command and redundant systems. In 2001, Special Forces planners for Operation Enduring Freedom in Afghanistan studied Sơn Tai before executing the first raids near Kandahar. In 2011, Navy SEAL Team 6 rehearses the Osama bin Laden raid at a replica compound in North Carolina, a direct echo of the Sơn Tai model. The bin Laden raid succeeds because helicopters arrive simultaneously, assault teams clear methodically, and radio discipline holds under fire. The DNA is identical. 170 rehearsals transform uncertainty into mechanical precision. On the 21st of November 2020, the 50th anniversary of the raid, 9 surviving raiders participate in a virtual memorial. The oldest is 91 years old. One asks, did we fail because we found no prisoners or succeed because we proved Hanoi was vulnerable? The answer is both, and the tension between them defines the raid's legacy. The prisoners were gone, but the myth of sanctuary died. The Sơn Tai raid becomes the template for 50 years of special operations. Eagle Claw, Urgent Fury, Just Cause, Enduring Freedom, Neptune Spear. Each inherits the same principles. Rehearse until mechanical. Coordinate to the second. Suppress without announcing. Extract under discipline. The production miracle's legacy is not measured in prisoners freed, but in doctrine established. The impossible became routine at 02:18 hours on the 21st of November, 1970. It has remained routine ever since. On a moonless night in November 1970, 56 men fly into the most defended airspace on Earth and leave without a scratch. They find no prisoners, but they shatter the myth that Hanoi is untouchable. Flawless execution does not guarantee the outcome you want, but it guarantees the capability you need. The barred door closes, the stopwatch stops, the radio clicks once, go. Rehearsal eliminates failure, coordination defeats defenses, surprise holds until extraction. Precision and surprise make sanctuaries imaginary.